Hey everybody, DeathsStalker here. So you've been following my videos, you know I recently upgraded the brakes on my RC51 to a Brembo unit with M4 calipers. And I'm really enjoying them, don't have any problems. However, there is a slight problem that the lever on my stock Honda clutch master cylinder is different from the brake side that's on the Brembo unit. And it sort of feels weird in my hands that the one lever feels distinctly different. And you can tell by the look at the Honda lever here, it's very long and it doesn't really have the same feel as the Brembo unit. So what I decided to do was go on eBay, and surprisingly I found Brembo makes a RCS19 clutch master cylinder that actually will work on Hondas and Suzuki motorcycles. And I actually found Omniaracing, again coming to the rescue. They actually had a kit for sale that was about $40 less than anybody else's kit. That also came with a free container of Brembo Racing brake fluid. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to install the new unit, and that way it'll be a bolt-on and the brake lever and the master cylinder lever will actually match. So the first thing I got to do, of course, is the dreaded removing the fairings off an RC51. So I'm not going to bother you with that. I'm just going to jump ahead, but just for the record, there's a couple bolts here, one bolt in the front chin fairing, a couple little bolts down at the bottom section, and 3 or 4 plastic pins you have to pull out, and a couple in here with the front scoop. So when we come back, we'll be working on the brakes. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is remove this retaining clip that keeps the lid on the reservoir cylinder. Now I actually have already loosened this ahead of time, but when you go to take this off, you have to make sure you have very firm force. You actually have to push in to back it off, because this is a Phillips style head, and it actually makes it difficult to get this out here without stripping these heads. So it's just something you have to be aware of. So now we just back this off, and of course that's just a cap, and right here is the top part of the reservoir. And just take that and put that someplace where you won't get brake fluid on things. Now again, because I don't really want to drain the entire system, all I actually have to do is get the brake fluid out of the reservoir and as much out of the actual master cylinder itself as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the bleed screw and just pump the brake fluid out, and it's just going to go down into a little catch bottle I have connected to it. I'm not bothering with a power bleeder for this system, simply because there's not a lot of fluid here. And I'm just going to move the lever a little bit to get that last little bit out. Okay, and that is the majority of it. So we make sure we put the bleed screw down tight again to stop the system from drawing any more air. And I'm just going to put this back on the bike because there is a little fluid in there. I just don't want to spill any more of it as I'm doing this. And I'm just going to put the retaining clip back in. I'm not doing it up tight, I'm just sort of snugging it. Okay, so that is that part. So the first thing we're going to do is take this loosen this banjo bolt off. There we go. Now, there may be a little bit of leakage of brake fluid. So what I do is I will take one of these paper towels and just wrap it around there for now until I'm getting ready to actually remove it from the bike. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to loosen off the mount for the clutch master cylinder. If anybody's wondering, this is what's just known as a stubby wrench. They make them in all the three major sizes. It's just when you're working in a compact area. In the old days, the mechanics used to take a full-sized ratchet, cut it down, and use it. But they actually sell them now. Now, I don't know if the audio is going to be picking it up. We have a heavy rainstorm warning coming in. It was supposed to start raining this afternoon, but it showed up a couple hours early. So on top of being wet, it's going to get very humid in here. My garage has heat. It does not have air conditioning. For some reason my wife wouldn't let me have that. She thought I'd spend all my life out here. All right, so what we'll do now, take that off, and just so we don't lose anything, we'll put it back in here. Oh, interesting. I realize the RC51 has a clutch switch too. There we go. So that's all done. Now let's get this completely disconnected out. Now by holding this here, the fluid that's in here and here is going to sort of settle towards as far back as possible. This is not being reused because we have to use a Brembo spec. Okay, so now, let me get this back in here. We will see about setting up the Brembo one. So what I'm doing just right now for a second is I'm just going to slip this in because I'm sort of curious as to how much free play we have here. I'm not worrying about getting anything tight. What I'm more worried about is whether or not the bike will actually hit. Okay, it's not really touching anything of importance. Okay. So of course it gives you a complete reservoir kit with the mounting bracket and a hose and the clips and whatnot. The hose will probably have to be cut to fit to the height clearance to make sure it clears the fairing. I'll show you that once I get it all figured out. And of course Brembo, besides giving you the anti-counterfeiting card, provides you with a proper banjo bolt and crush washers. So this is the tedious part where this is going to come on and off a bunch of times, and I'm going to have to do a bunch of bending on the bracket to make it fit and whatnot. So I'm just going to cut away here, and I'll come back with how it looks so we don't have to edit out some very bad language that'll probably be said when I'm working here. Okay, I'm back. It surprisingly only took about a half an hour of fiddling around to get everything set up properly. Of course, the unusual thing is if you look at the bracket, which originally was straight, it's now got 3 bends in it just to get it to sit, to make the reservoir sit level. Now originally, if you just followed the instructions from Brembo, they wanted it to sit out this way, but it actually would have, on this bike, it would have interfered with the bleed screw. So I pushed it in a little bit and got it to work. Now the nice thing, I'm just going to move this a bit, so see if we can get a better shot right here. Now if you notice, the actual hose that runs from the reservoir to the master cylinder is very short. That's because this has to be kind of close to the master cylinder to clear this part of the fairing of the RC51. So the nice thing is I don't actually have to replace the elbow connection here. I was actually able to use it on this one, where unlike the brake side, I actually had to put a different fitting on the master cylinder. Okay, so the one thing to look right here is this is the actual hydraulic line for the clutch that connects to the master cylinder, and you actually have to make certain that it's behind the wiring harness for the switch gear for your turn signals and your light switches, because if you try to go to full lock with it in front, it actually stops the bike from going to full lock. So you just have to be aware that the electrical line here has to be in front of the brake line to actually have it work without binding. And the other thing is that, of course, this system isn't set up to work with your the switch that prevents you from starting the bike with it in gear without using the clutch. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to put hydraulic fluid in this thing and bleed it. Okay, so we got lever now. Actually feels pretty good. Probably got to adjust this a little bit to get the right point for the clutch to pull out and in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just finish buttoning it all up, and then we're going to just try a few things about that with the clutch interruption switch. Just put this little guy back on and do it up. And don't forget to put this little cover on. So back again in a couple minutes. Okay, so the bike is all buttoned up. The clutch is actually working now. It's going to take some fine tuning, but by turning this knob here, you can adjust the lever in or out. And of course, the lever pressure is adjustable through this covered bung here. And what I will do again, just like the brakes, I will actually include the clutch in the update as well, because by the time I get the clutch figured out, the brakes will be all set, and I'll be able to do that video about that, so I can talk about both. Now I did test the clutch interrupter switch, and right now, of course, it's not working because it's not attached to the clutch, but apparently it's the same circuit that's on the kickstand. So if the kickstand's down, the bike will immediately not start. So if you are in gear and your kickstand's down, the bike will not start. Now, if you don't have the kickstand down and you try to start the bike without the clutch in, it's going to jump. But that probably means you're probably sitting on it. I'm pretty good with my clutch. I always start my bikes in neutral. I never, the only time I ever start them in the, with the bike in gear is if I've stalled at some place, usually because I took the choke off too soon. So overall, the job wasn't that complicated. If you've watched my videos on doing the brakes, this is actually simpler to do than the brake job themselves, since you're only replacing the master cylinder and reservoir. You're not touching anything else, so it's actually fairly simple. And overall, I took a break for lunch. I'm talking, including the time to take the bodywork off the bike and put the bodywork back on the bike and clean everything up, about 2.5 hours. So it's not that difficult of a job. I wasn't trying to rush. I was just taking my time figuring out as I went along. So if you liked the video, give me a like. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. If I know the answer, I will give you my answer. If not, there's several forums on RC51s, and that's actually some of the places where I find my information as well. DeathsStalker signing off.